My real passion of late is the Merrill Institute. And, Lauren, we began to notice in research many, many years ago that what came out of people's mouths did not seem to match what their bodies were saying. And it created a lot of confusion such that, oftentimes I'd be in a room interviewing somebody and every fiber of their body was screaming out that they did not like the concept. But they would say things like, oh, it's fine, it's good, I like it, it's nice. And I would excuse myself from the interviewing room and walk out the door and around into the observation room and talk to my clients who'd be in there high-fiving each other because they're thinking that this person is really liking the concept.
Sure.
And I'd have to break in and say, guys, what interview are you watching? This person does not like this concept. It does not resonate. Mm-hmm. And so we began to formalize that and put that into our reports. And then I myself was formally trained. And now I'm going to be training people. And it's really exciting from a variety of perspectives, both not only for the implications it has with research, but in culture at large, there's many applications for this.
Yeah, and personally, I'm really fascinated in this also, and we briefly touched on this in other conversations, but the first thing that I think of when I think about body language and microexpression is the show Lie to Me. So for anybody watching this interview who's familiar with that show, can you tell us how accurate is it?
Not very.
Okay.
So that show is based on the work by probably one of the foremost experts in lying, a guy by the name of Dr. Paul Ekman, and he's been doing this research for 50, 60 years, okay? Wow. And that show is based on his work. And there's a lot of common misperceptions about lying and falsehoods. And one of them is that you can just walk up to somebody and look at them like this guy did and go, you're lying to me. It just doesn't work that way. There are a lot of things that need context, and that's the key. That's the key with pretty much everything, right? It's all about the context. If the person does not have a reason to be lying to you, then maybe they're not. Mm-hmm. And if they do have a reason to be lying to you, maybe they are. Mm-hmm. And it's generally not one thing that creates a sense of this person is misleading. It's a combination of things, from facial expressions to body language to going from signals of comfort to discomfort.
You've mentioned before some applications of body language micro expressions, and in particular you told a story about working with value-added resellers, and I'm wondering if you can tell it again, because I thought that was such a good example of how some of these tactics can be used in a research setting.
Sure, and that's just one of many examples that we can use, but in that particular instance I was working for a very large manufacturer of printers and all sorts of peripherals. And this particular product that we were talking about, a family of products, was being sold through the channel, through value-added resellers. And this particular manufacturer wanted to understand, from the perspective of the value-added reseller, what do they need to be successful to move our product through the channel? What is it? And of course, there was a lot of obvious things that we would poke around about. We eventually decided to go to New York and Chicago and Los Angeles, and we talked to VARs in the channel, some of them very large, some of them very small, but all of them were selling peripherals and printers. And we began to ask them questions about, what kind of support do you need? Do you need, market development funds? Do you need spiffs and prizes? Do you what kind of margins are you looking for? you know, what are the things that you need from us as a manufacturer to make you successful so that it's a win-win, so that you can sell our products and we can sell our products. And we began to have a really robust conversation about that. And, you know, the VARs were very, very animated about the help they need, because it's not about hardware anymore. It's about software, right? So at one point we asked the question, you know, does it matter who the manufacturer is behind this channel plan? And I remember this distinctly. There was one VAR in Los Angeles that said, oh, absolutely. And so right then and there, I'm going to stop now. And at that point, I interjected what is a BLINK technique. It's a horrible acronym, but it stands for body language, intuition, numenology, know-how.
Okay.
And it's basically a acronym that describes a technique that plays off the concept that we emote faster than we think. Okay. So at this point, at this juncture, I already know from this respondent that manufacturers are important to him. I could have gone one of two ways. I could have asked him a question, but in that particular situation, he would have had time to think about an answer.
Sure.
Okay. But what I did is I used the BLINK technique. And so I said to the VAR, I said, so Mr. VAR, suppose I told you it was brand X. And I just laid it out there. And at that point, I saw his face contort into signs of contempt, disgust, flash of anger. Well, what came out of his mouth is, oh, brand X, they're fine. They're a good brand, right?
Yeah.
And so at this point, I don't know what he's thinking, but I know he's uncomfortable. I know that something I said made him react faster than he could think. And I went with that. And I said, so Mr. VAR, you know, I'm getting the sense that there's something amiss with brand X. And he stopped and he thought. And he said, well, yeah, well, you know, okay. Brand X is a very well-known brand. Everybody knows them. My customers know them. So from that perspective, brand X is great. But once I tried to sell 50 printers from brand X, and I registered that deal on my brand X VAR website, and brand X went around my back to my customer, and I'll never do business with them again. And so just from that little exchange, we knew that a critical part of channel management is deal registration. If somebody, you know, is going to, you know, give you a large unit sale, you know, honor that. And that was very effective. You know, he had no idea what technique I was using. There's one other thing that I think that a lot of interviewers lack. And I don't mean interviewers, but I mean anybody that is facing with clients or, you know, employees or family members or anybody really. And that is empathy. And that is empathy. Really trying to, again, it's context, trying to size somebody up to see what kind of condition are they in to engage with me. And sometimes we move ahead when somebody's just not ready. And these are the things that we'll be teaching. How to encounter when people seem fearful, how to encounter when people seem contemptuous or disgusted.
You were able to notice these emotions on his face very, very quickly. You know, it sounds like before he maybe registered or formed a thought about how he was going to respond verbally to you. So these are techniques that can be used, it sounds like, very fluidly in many, many different situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us more about that.
Well, you absolutely picked up on this, and that's why they call it micro expressions. because they're very quick. They're half a second or less.
Mm.
And a lot of times you can miss them.
Mm.
A lot of times you want to try techniques to, if you feel like you've missed a micro expression, you want to go back and try and elicit that again.
Okay.
But essentially, there's 42 muscles in the face that control about 10,000 positions in the face.
Wow. Wow.
Of those 10,000, 3,000 are associated with emotion. And of those 3,000, there are only 7 that are universal and worldwide. Okay?
Interesting.
And that's what we concentrate on. And that's sadness, happiness, contempt, disgust, anger, surprise. There's neutral face, right? I'm missing one, but it'll come to me. So that's what we concentrate on. And within each microexpression, there's several variations of that.
Wow.
So you can express anger in a variety of ways.
Mm.
You can express contempt in a variety of ways.
Okay. I think I know contempt from watching Lie to Me, but it's like a lip curl, if I'm not mistaken. So that's only one of the ways to detect contempt, for example.
Correct. And that,
Okay.
Some people have they can show contempt with both sides at the same time. It's real rare and it's real subtle, and only the best folks can. I don't get it sometimes. It's very hard to react. But the upper lip corner is a sure sign of contempt.
Wow.
Rolling our eyes, when we roll our eyes at somebody, that's a sign of contempt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misconceptions about contempt. Like one of them is this, blocking. I don't know if you can see.
Okay. Yeah, I can see your shoulders and a little bit of your hands. Yeah. So this is what I'm familiar with.
Some people think that that's a negative connotation and it's a blocking gesture.
Okay, because it feels very blocking. I think when, being on the other end of it, it feels very energetically sort of, blocking is a great word.
Right, but again, it's all about context, Lauren, because you and I are having an argument and we're heated and I'm doing that. I'm maybe blocking you, but mostly that's a real self-comforting thing. If you go to a movie and you look at people sitting in the movie, you'll see people just holding themselves, and people do that with their face. They touch their face because they're uncomfortable. It's a pacifier, and at our ages, we pacified ourselves as babies with sucking our thumbs, not appropriate at our age. So we find other ways to pacify ourselves.
So fascinating. So fascinating.